Hello, all. My name is Jariah Johnson, and I'm here to talk to you all about Christianity and sex for my video presentation. Many forms of Christianity tend to be against sexual pleasure. They only approve of sex for procreation. They also say that the mother of Jesus was a virgin and was also born of a virgin. Their most religious people often cannot have sex. The Pope, monks, nuns. And why do we think that is? Why do they connect sex with sin? And I think that's honestly a great question, and we are going to take the time to dive into it. But first, we have to understand why they think what they think and why they now believe what they believe. And that is what I am going to talk to you all about in this upcoming video. So, get comfortable, take notes, and enjoy learning something new. Because we are about to get right into it right about now.
So how did a faith that's about love and creation end up with such a deep suspicion of physical pleasure? It's a huge question. Today, we're going to trace what's called the aesthetic shift, a journey through centuries of philosophy and theology that totally reshaped how the Western world saw the human body. And look, this isn't just some dusty religious history. It's really a story about how powerful ideas can be, how they can define what we think is good, what we think is dangerous, and even how we see ourselves. And that's our big question right there. Why this complicated, often fraught relationship with something so well human? The answer isn't simple. It's messy. It's basically found in two complete different worlds. You have the earthy, life-affirming traditions of ancient Judaism on one side, and on the other, the super abstract, spirit-focused ideas of Greek philosophy. We are going to see how these two powerful currents match together, especially in the minds of one of history's most influential thinkers, and force the total reevaluation of the body, the soul, and sin itself. All right, so we are going to get into the roadmap. We're going to tackle this in 4 parts. First, we'll start at the beginning in a world of procreation to see the Hebrew foundation. Then we'll dive into the radical new ideas that came from the Greek ascetic influence. After that, we'll see how it all got synthesized by one key figure in Augustine and Original Sin. And finally, we will look at how these ideas became official church policies. Okay, so let's wind the clock way back, because our story, and this might surprise you, doesn't start with suspicion of the body at all. Actually, it's the opposite. It starts with kind of a reverence for it. To really get how big of a change happened later, we have to start in a world where making babies wasn't just a good idea, it was a divine command. Like the very first one God gives to humanity. And boom, right here on this slide, you can basically see it. It's a direct command. It's positive. It's joyful. Go fill the world with life. Worldviews then where the physical world is blessed. Then you jump forward a few centuries and you get the Apostle Paul, who's living in a world just saturated with new ideas. And he sets up this stark opposition, this battle between the carnal flesh and the spiritual mind. That is the dramatic shift we're here to unpack. You know, in that early Hebrew tradition, everything revolved around this idea. Procreation was literally a partnership with God. It wasn't just a personal blessing. It was proof that God was on your side. It was the bedrock of the entire community, and sex within marriage was seen as a celebrated good, an act that held families together and kept the covenant going. In a world like that, choosing to be celibate would have been seen as, well, just bizarre. It would have been like rejecting a gift from God and turning your back on your community. But then, into this Hebrew way of thinking, a powerful new set of ideas started. This caused endless debate, but it created this incredible tension and ultimately a new way of looking at the human body and what it was for. Now, a word that we need to become familiar with is asceticism. It's basically the practice of mastering your body in order to elevate your spirit. The whole point is to purify your soul and get closer to the divine by detaching from all those worldly desires. Good food, comfort, and especially sex. Now, this idea was not brand new, but it found super fertile ground in Greek philosophy, which is exactly what the early Christian thinkers were reading, debating, and soaking up. This right here, this slide captures the fundamental clash of ideas. The Hebrew tradition was holistic. Your body and soul are one integrated thing, created by God, and he called it good. But then Plato comes along and he introduces this powerful idea called dualism. For Plato, your soul is the real you. It's eternal, it's pure, and your body, well, your body is just a temporary flawed prism. It's a source of all these messy, distracting desires that chain your noble soul to this imperfect physical world. The goal becomes escaping this prison. You can see right away how that idea alone plants the seed of suspicion against any and all bodily pleasure. And then adding another layer to all of this, you have Stoicism. For the Stoics, the ultimate goal was tranquility, a state of inner peace where you're not disturbed by emotions. And the way to get there, they believed, was through pure reason, to use your rational mind to master all those unruly passions like lust or anger or even too much joy. To a Stoic, passion was like a mental illness, a mistaken judgment that you had to conquer. So now you've got Platonism, saying the body is a prison, and Stoicism adding it that its passions are a threat to your mind. Together, they create a complete philosophical toolkit for living an ascetic life. So you've got these two big ideas, Hebrew theology and Greek ascetic philosophy, just kind of floating in the air for centuries. But it took one absolute giant of a thinker to fuse them together into one coherent and incredibly powerful doctrine, a doctrine that would define how Western Christianity saw sex for more than 1,000 years. And that man was Augustine of Hippo. Now, to really understand Augustine, you have to understand the world he lived in. And it was a world that was falling apart. In the year 410, he saw the sack of Rome. I mean, can you imagine? To them, that felt like it was the end of the world. The eternal city had fallen. This backdrop of pure chaos demanded an answer. Why was the world so broken? Why did people seem so flawed? And his answers, forged in this crisis, was going to change everything. The doctrine of Augustine, defined with, frankly, devastating precision, is called the original sin. His big theory was that when Adam and Eve disobeyed God, it wasn't just their personal mistake. No, it was the cataclysmic event that corrupted human nature itself forever. And this corruption, this stain of sin, he argued, isn't just learned behavior. It's passed down biologically. It's inherited by every single human being from the moment they're connected. So we're not born neutral. We're born already leaning towards sin. So how in the world does this hereditary stain from person to person? This is Augustine's bombshell. This is the crucial link. See, being deeply influenced by all that Greek philosophy, he saw sexual desires as what he called concupiscence, as the ultimate irrational passion. It's that moment where your body totally overrules your rational mind. And he concluded that this uncomfortable lust must be the primary symptom and the engine of our fallen nature. And therefore, the very act of sex driven by the passion becomes the physical vehicle that transmits the stain of original sin from parent to child, generation after generation. And I mean, just listen to Augustine's words. It's pretty chilling. He says that even within marriage, the physical act is a downward drag on the spirit. So in his new framework, sex could only be justified for one reason and one reason only: making babies. It was a necessary duty to keep the human race going. Sure, but it was a spiritually dangerous one. The pleasure involved, that was no longer a gift from God. It was constant, shameful reminder of our fallen irrational nature. Now, Augustine's ideas were so powerful, they didn't just stay in books. Through his endless writings and sermons, his influence was just immense. His ideas got woven into the very fabric of the institutional church, creating these powerful new ideals and then backing them up with the concrete rules that made abstinence the absolute highest, holiest spiritual path you could take. A really key development during this time was the growing importance of the Virgin Mary. Theologically, she started to be framed as the new Eve. The logic went like this. If the first Eve, the mother of all humanity, brought sin into the world through disobedience and carnal act, then the new Eve, Mary, brought redemption through her absolute purity. This creates a powerful split where Eve becomes a symbol for temptation and weakness, while Mary becomes the ultimate idea of spiritual grace, an ideal she achieved through her perpetual virginity. So, what does this do? Well, it creates a very clear spiritual hierarchy. Sure, marriage and motherhood were still valued, but now they were seen as a kind of lower calling, something more worldly, also tainted by the Augustinian view of sex. The highest, purest state a person could achieve was a life of consecrated virginity. Basically, to be like Mary, her spiritual life was now completely tied to her sexual abstinence. It's powerfully reinforced that this idea that holiness and sexuality were basically opposing forces. And of course, this ideally eventually became official policy. You can actually watch it happen over time. This slow but relentless march towards mandatory celibacy for priests. It started as a regional rule, then it became a papal directive, until finally in the 12th century, it becomes universal law for the entire Western Church. And the logic, which is rooted through Augustine's theology, was crystal clear. If you're going to handle the sacred mysteries of faith, you have to be in the highest possible state of purity. And in this new way of thinking, purity meant being completely detached from the spiritual dangerous acts of sex. 1,000+ years, just allow that to sink in for a second. For over a millennium, these interconnected ideas, Platonic dualism, Augustinian sin, the idea of virginity, clerical celibacy, this whole package was the dominant way of understanding sexuality in Western civilization. It shaped laws, art, social norms in the most private parts of people's lives, leaving behind an intellectual and cultural legacy that is just immense. And that leaves us with one final question for you to think about, because this isn't just ancient history, right? From all the modern debates on sexuality happening inside religious institutions to the broader cultural anxiety about the body and pleasure that still hangs around even in our very secular society. How do the echoes of this great aesthetic shift still affect us today? It's a powerful reminder, forged in a completely different world, can cast a very, very long shadow on our own. Thank you so much. My name is Jariah Johnson, and this is my assignment.